Greetings and welcome to What's Wrong with Wolfie. My name is Jason.
And I'm Rich.
And I'm Chris.
And this week is the video games of 1997. Look, I'll be honest here. We knew when we got to this point that all the other platforms and games would go out the window for one particular machine, and that was the N64. Released in the UK on the 1st of March 1997 for £249.99p, it brought with it a stellar catalogue of games and would always have a place in our hearts. Some would say the N64 was a flop for Nintendo, mainly because they stuck with cartridges and ignored the CD format, but I think I can speak for all of us here, and you, dear listeners, will say that what a load of bollocks. This week, we are going to discuss the grand old machine, its controller, our memories of picking up our N64, and discuss our all-time favourite N64 games. And there could only be one man who could join us to discuss all this, making his return to the podcast, and the host of N64 Live Podcast. Please welcome back Cliff Foster, aka The Amazing Cliff.
Free time guests.
It's the trilogy.
Hello, Cliff.
Hi.
Hello, you guys. Do you know what? I've been listening to the podcast going, well, we're getting close to it. We're getting close to it. And I'm just waiting for the little email to come across from Jason to say, it is time.
And it is here. How have you been, Cliff, since you've been on the podcast last time?
Yeah, good, because I haven't had anybody make me watch Batman and Robin anymore. So I'm fantastic. Yeah, don't worry, Rich. I filled your boots for that one. Surprisingly, you weren't here for that one, were you?
I was not. No, I got away with that one. So.
No, he dodged a bullet with that one, didn't he? It's almost like he did it on
disappointed though,
purpose.
because I really wanted a conversation with you about the pro wrestler Max Payne who played Bane. Because we didn't get to have that, which was unfortunate. But the only thing I'm saddened.
We didn't really discuss that much, did we? About the guy who played Bane. I don't think we did.
Actually.
We didn't really touch on it, which is surprising because you've got both me and Ash who have worked inside the wrestling industry. So it's like you thought that would be the obvious thing to come up, but no, we didn't. There'd be a sad story about him, but let's not talk about that. We've spoken about Batman and Robin. Don't want to do it again. I'm running away in the opposite direction.
Yeah, once was enough.
Always.
Never again. Well, as we got you here, Cliff, and you seem to have dodged my would you rather questions so far, I think now's the time for you to not get away with it.
Oh.
So before we delve into the N64 loving, I want to get through these would you rather questions with you.
Go for it.
Excellent. I've changed a couple.
Oh.
Just so you know.
Just to keep me on my toes.
Yeah. So if you're sitting comfortably, I shall start. Would you rather wear winter clothes all summer or summer clothes all winter?
Winter clothes all summer. I love a hoodie.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Would you rather play Super Mario World or Super Mario 64?
Now, we discussed this slightly last time. It's surprisingly Super Mario World.
Would you rather watch Sequest DSV or Space Precinct?
Space Precinct.
Good choice.
Would you rather play Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi?
Crazy Taxi.
Would you rather talk like Yoda or breathe like Darth Vader for the rest of your life?
Me talk like Yoda.
Would you rather watch the Super Mario Bros. Film or the Street Fighter film?
Oh, Street Fighter.
Would you rather live twice as long or win the lottery?
Oh, win the lottery.
Would you rather be a character in a video game or in a movie?
Video game.
Would you rather have to sing everything you want to say or talk in rhyme?
Sing.
And would you rather watch Babylon 5 or Star Trek Deep Space Nine?
Now, I'm going to say Babylon 5 because I really don't like Star Trek.
What?
I'm sorry.
The mute button?
I respect your honesty.
I respect you.
Yeah, no, I'm muted him.
Respect your
Sorry, I
honesty.
can't deal with that. No, okay, I'll bring it back.
Thanks. I'm a massive... To be honest, I don't know what it is. I am a huge Star Wars fan.
Sure.
And I judged everything on Star Wars, but it was a really weird time because actually when people were watching, let's say, Next Generation, I was watching the odd ones like Space Precinct, like Farscape, like, you know,
I was watching them all.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I just became very opposed to Star Trek. I don't know.
Kinda
It's
like
the
your-
next gen. It was like,
Kind of like
no,
your TK Maxx sci-fi, really, isn't it? It's just,
yeah. Well, I always say it's space. I say it's space Mormons, but that's my own opinion.
Scientology, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, brilliant. And I was surprised you did say Super Mario World over 64, and I mean that's the right answer in my eyes. Anyway, Super Mario World is the best Super Mario game ever. But why for you? Why was it that is better than 64?
So for me, Mario was always quite like Sonic. I prefer it on the 2D plane. Even though Super Mario 64 was my first experience of this console that we're going to be discussing about today, for me, Mario is always that 2D plane. So for me, Super Mario Bros. 3 is my favourite. My favourite Mario game there's ever been. However, I love Super Mario Worlds because it was like free, but with a bit more exploration. And a bit more... Yeah, Super Mario 64... Even though you had exploration of the castle, when you're actually inside the levels, they were islands. So you couldn't really explore. You had a very, very little area you could genuinely explore. Where with Mario Brothers, Mario World just felt a bit more open to me. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it always did.
No, I kind of get what you mean. And I just think that the whole different islands and worlds that they created were just very interesting, and like that last level with the Bowser Castle and the music and the flashing lights and the neon sign and everything. Just love it. Just love the whole thing. Just quality.
Hey Jason, don't want to be that guy, but I'm just something I've been meaning to pick up with you actually the last few times you've done this questioning. Whenever you say Super Mario Bros, I always feel like it's going to be Super Mario Brothers with the brothers played by Matt and Luke Goss. Even down to the M&L on their hats. I mean, Mario, Luigi, Matt, Luke. It's just a bit uncanny. So,
would you rather me say something else?
No, I think you should stick with Bros. Actually, I do like it. So, yeah. It's a strange mashup, but I do like it.
It is, but yeah, no, it sounds really cool. And you just reminded me actually that I need to ask you a question, Rich.
Yes.
And I'm bringing it back for this episode because you've got a really special beer on the go. So Rich, what's in your glass, mate?
Okay, this week I am drinking Here Kitty Kitty from Out of Order Brewery, who are based somewhere in the US. I actually imported this specially. It is a bourbon maple bacon cupcake sour, 6.2%, and it is literally. It looks like a glass of something else. That probably something you find down there. Yeah,
it looks very creamy.
Very
very
creamy.
milky.
Yeah.
Looks very like a glass of milk.
Full of protein. Much. Yeah. So.
And the can is very special as well, isn't it? Because it's all like homeless Thundercats or something, isn't it?
That's awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah, no, I was very jealous when you picked that up, but you picked up a whole series of them, didn't you? Like
and they all
5
seem
of
to
them.
look like glasses of spunk, so I don't know why. But it seems to be a recurring theme. So,
Are you sure that wasn't the local delivery to the veterinary establishment for the horses, not actually your beer delivery? Are you sure you got them the right way round?
it's possible, but I'm going to go back for more either way, so it's fine. So.
It's not beer, it's actually Lion-O special mixture.
It's like Jackass with the pig semen.
Oh, God.
That's the only bit of that film where I had to physically turn around and just, no.
Well, this has gone a different turn, so...
Well, you guys, Rich brought up that it looked like a glass of spunk.
Oh, yeah,
so
I'm not
it's a
blaming you,
natural
Chris.
segue.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely blaming Rich for this. So let's get into our main topic of the podcast, and that is the Nintendo 64.
Captain, there's something heading our way extremely fast. It's coming straight at us. I've never seen anything like it before. Action. Racing.
Fun. Adventure. Nintendo 64, the fastest, most powerful games console on Earth, now at $99.99.
And Cliff, let's start with you. And like, what was it about this machine that like gravitated you towards it, and for you to have this love for it?
There's a couple of reasons. One of them is that it was my first ever console that was just solely mine. I have a younger sister and an elder sister, so we had a Mega Drive before this, and a NES before that. And they were always the family console, usually in the dining room, so we would have to bicker and fight for who was going to play it. Now this, on my 12th birthday in September of 1998, we went to Curry's and my mum said, right, you have the choice of either a PlayStation or an N64. And I had friends with both, but I chose the N64 with the golden controller, with GoldenEye and Mario 64 included. And I had friends with both, but I was gravitating towards that. I mean, GoldenEye, we all had that first experience of playing that as a 4-player. But it was really, really strange. So after that, I soon afterwards got Diddy Kong Racing, #Justice for Timber. I got that a week later with some birthday money that I had, and then started collecting from there. And I think I ended up, by the time I ditched it for a PlayStation 2, I think I ended up with over 30 games, which was quite a large collection at the time, seeing they were 60 quid a bloody pop. Now, at that time as well, obviously, they were my teenage years. They were my growing up years. So between the years of all of secondary school and until I got myself my own job at the age of 16, that was my console. And in that time, I won't bore you too much, but it's quite emotional things happened to me. And it actually made me sort of separate myself from the world a bit and lock myself in my bedroom. And it was like that comfort blanket. And I think even now, like when I moved 6,500 miles away 10 years ago, for 2.5 years down to Buenos Aires, and I had a box of things that I wanted to keep. And in this box went every single one of my Southampton Football Club programs and my N64, Game Boy Advance, and all the games. So I never kept the PlayStation 2. I sold that on with all the games, but I felt like I had to keep this console. And I think, again, I think I've grown this emotional attachment to this piece of plastic, and I'm looking at the one that I bought from that Curry's in 1998, and obviously we have the games associated to it that, you know, out my top 5 games of all time, even in my top 10, quite a few of them are N64 games. The top 3 are all N64 games. My top 3 games of all time are all N64 games until you get to Skyrim. So I think that it's got such an emotional attachment to that console. And I can remember playing most of these games for the first time, where I was, whose house it was over, if it was me that bought the game. You know, I have such an emotional attachment to a piece of plastic. And I know that sounds odd, but people have it with TV shows. Sure. People have it with brands across the board. But mine has always been the N64. It was such a comfort for me at quite a dark time.
Beautiful. What about yourself, Chris? You know, where did your journey start with the N64?
It was, I think, basically just like was just spoke about as well. Like, we lived in a single parent household where there wasn't a lot of spare cash flying around. So we had my dad's old Atari 2600, which still works and is in my loft right now. And my dad, I think just before he left, bought me and my brother a Mega Drive because we'd wanted one. And I mean, my dad was my dad. He was, you know, he wasn't short of cash, but he was very tight sometimes. So So when we got the Mega Drive, that was our console. It lived downstairs with the big say big TV. It's like, you know, the size of a magazine now, isn't it? Yeah. It's like 14-inch at best, you know. So we had the Mega Drive, and we had loads of happy hours logged on that, playing 2-player Sonic the Hedgehog 2, you know, all of that. And then exactly what you just said, where 1997, 98, I was at the age where I could buy it myself. And my brother saved up his birthday and Christmas money and bought himself a PlayStation. I saved up birthday, Christmas, and I can't remember what it was, something else happened, and I saved up and I went down to Woolworths and I bought my GoldenEye N64. And I think it was all my friends having it made me want it, because they were all talking about the revolutionary graphics, and I was just like, oh, you know, all my friends had an N64 and a PlayStation, so we weren't that privileged, I should say, really, to have it. So when I saw GoldenEye was bundled in with the N64 console, I was like, okay. So yeah, I think it was 2 Christmases and on one birthday or something like that. Saved up, went down and bought it, but it's not the one with the golden controller, which is a shame. It was just a standard tie-in where I put Pierce's face on the slip sleeve, and it was in the polystyrene box. And to say I was obsessed with GoldenEye and Mario 64 is an understatement, because that was all I would do after school. The only thing that kept me going through secondary school, those early dark days of secondary school that everybody hates, but certain people love for some reason, that's what kept me going. Was at about 4 or 4:30, I could go and spend 2 hours playing GoldenEye or spend 2 hours playing Mario 64. So that was my first ownership of the N64. It was my console. I bought it myself, and the first time I played one was at my friend's house, and you're used to the classic control pads, you know, the flat control pads.
shape.
I was like, yeah. Or in Nintendo's case, the square ones for the NES and stuff. And I was like, and my friend had to physically show me how to use a controller, because I didn't know what to do with it. It's going to sound really, really sad, but I didn't. I had no idea, and
Yeah.
I was never a, you know, this is before YouTube and the internet, and I wasn't really a big games magazines show watcher, so Games Master always flew me, but I just wasn't that into it, and still run hot and cold sometimes. And yeah, I said to him, I was like, I don't know what to do with this. He went, what do you mean you don't have to do it? I said, I don't know what to do with this controller. And he had to physically, like that romantic scene in Ghost, he had to show me where to put my hands.
Wow. Here we go.
That was I don't know why I counted that analogy. I could have been anything. God damn.
Why did he have his shirt off though? Like,
You could edit that out. Yeah, there was a potter's wheel in his bedroom for some reason. I can't work out why. But yeah, he had to physically show me how to hold the middle of the controller and the pad on the top. I had no idea how to hold it. And it took me a good half an hour to get used to the analog stick movement, and yeah, I was hooked. And he had GoldenEye and quite a few games, Doom and Quake and stuff like that, and I was like, this is amazing, like what the hell is this? And then that was when I was like, I need to get one of these. And then in Woolworths there it was, and it was still there, so I bought it, and I still have it,
Nice.
and I probably will always have it, because it's a nice little bit of James Bond merchandise and gaming memories. And
Yeah. No, definitely don't get rid of it. Keep it.
no, I'm not, I've got all my old consoles. I've got all my old consoles.
Though you should get it down out the loft every now and again, just to.
I actually need a CRT television, because
you do, because they look like ass on
Yeah.
modern TV.
on my I've got like a little LCD panel, like
Yeah.
15-year-old crappy one in my little office project room thing. But I need a shitty little CRT monitor.
Facebook
do it
Marketplace is your
justice.
friend on that, my friend. Facebook Marketplace.
Do you know what? Occasionally I walk into British Heart Foundation down here, and all they have are discarded 20-year-old flat panels and plasma screens and
Wow.
the old NEC monitors from like 2001 that some old people have just given away, and they're like, "Will you take these?" Like, who's gonna want a 22-year-old NEC monitor? Like, what? Why is that even there?
Who knows? Who knows?
But yeah, I will get a CRT TV and probably put it somewhere. It's probably bigger than this room.
Yeah,
an
heavy old
extension just to
things
put
they
the-
were too.
Yeah, I've got to carry the damn thing upstairs with my back
Yeah.
injury as well.
Oh, God.
There we go.
It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it.
Even if it's just like, I don't care how big it is. You know, do you remember I was obsessed with miniature technology when I was a kid? Maybe it might be my James Bond obsession thing, but friends of ours had a tiny weeny TV in their kitchen. Do you ever see those when you're a kid?
What, the one with the aerial? And
Yeah,
the
it was.
speaker on the
It
front?
doubled as a radio and alarm clock, and it had a TV on one of the sides or the back end of it. I was obsessed with that.
Yeah, ironically, the person that I first ever saw his N64, so the first ever N64 I saw was my friend Daniel's, and ironically, his mum used to have one of those in her kitchen.
That's
So-
random. That's exactly where my
That's
friends
a memory.
was, and her mum and dad, they had this thing, and I was obsessed with it every time I went around there, because we were up until mid 90s, late 90s, we were like a one TV household. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they've got a TV in each room, one in the lounge, and they've got a small bloody one in the kitchen. And I was like, what is this? And it was like, how big were the screens? What, 5 inches, 6
Yeah,
inches?
they weren't big. About
Tiny
the same
little
size
thing.
as a phone.
Yeah, mad. Even now, scout eBay, it pops into my head, but I need to get a small CRT TV. So
Yeah, but not that small.
no,
No.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's no 4-player GoldenEye going on that screen.
No,
It's like when
Although-
you see people putting like Doom on like the most random of things, isn't
God,
it?
yeah.
did you see
yeah,
that the guy put Doom on a pregnancy test? Did you see that?
Yeah.
I was
No,
like,
I
that
haven't
dude
seen
is
that one.
insane. That dude knows his electronics. It's insane. Absolutely
Pretty
insane.
Yeah.
And I thought he was doing it on other small things that weren't designed for it. And then when he did the pregnancy test, it was like, mate, that's witchcraft. Digital pregnancy test.
And what about yourself? What about yourself, Rich? Where did your love start from the N64? Was it similar story to these guys?
Kind of, sort of. Mine was actually quite broiled in controversy. Basically, got my Mega Drive back in '91, and then for the good 5 years after that, it saw me through to the PlayStation. So my parents, obviously, that Christmas, I thought, well, he hasn't had a console in half a decade. We'll get him what he wants. He'll be happy for the next half decade. And within 6 months of having the PlayStation, I was so sorely after, I wanted an N64, and that was probably the first time I had to have that conversation with my parents when I was like, oh, I want to get the new one, I want to trade this one in, and they were like, we just got you that, you're not having it. And we're like, oh, not understanding my plight, first world problems. Didn't have an income of my own, so I just had to kind of go along with it. At the time, my sister was working, and she kind of really liked my PlayStation, and she kind of teased to me, and she said, oh, maybe I'll buy yours off you, and you can get an N64. And then she never said anything about it after that. So I just kind of went about my business, carried on with my PlayStation. I was watching things like, Blast Core and Mario 64 and Games Master, just getting really, really pissed off because I wanted this wonderful little charcoal grey box with this insane controller. I went to school one day, came home, went upstairs, and there was a N64 with Mario 64 on my bed. And I still actually have a memory of how I reacted. I actually remember just running back to my parents' bedroom and then collapsed on the stairs because I truly was in shock. And it turned out what my sister had done is she took my PlayStation out of my room, moved it into hers, went down to the nearby Electronics Boutique and just bought in N64 and Mario 64 outright as a trade. And I didn't see it coming.
Wow.
And yeah, that was how I got it, and I was just completely beside myself. I still remember that evening, just having it fired up, playing Dire Docs on Mario 64. Just was still for me the most almost religious experience I've ever had with a game. the music, the visuals. And I think what the N64 did in terms of getting its hooks into me, it's hard to describe, because having had the Mega Drive that long and having cartridges, and then the PlayStation came along, and it was this new era, like CD based. You could have all the music, massive games. It was exciting seeing games grow. Like, I was playing Wipeout that Christmas, listening to Fast Starter, and I was like, this is nothing like what I've had before with the Mega Drive. And then the N64 came out, and in a way at the time, even then, I could tell there was probably going to be a degree of a regression, because, okay, we're still on cartridges. Is it going to be as good as what I've been playing for the last, 6 months? But it just won me round. I saw the visuals of Mario 64, and it just blew like any other CD-based consoles away. I still now, I remember watching that infamous challenge on Games Master with Dave Perry, seeing the Blast Chord challenge, and I was like, all the little things, like the way the explosions looked, the liquid metal effects in Mario 64 when he jumps into the pool, and I was just like, this is insane. It looked like Terminator 2, and I was like, this is on a console, I have to have it. I'm whatever age I was at the time, 14, 15, and I knew I had to have this. This is probably the first time I really had like FOMO growing up. And yeah, I couldn't wait any longer. So God bless my sister for pulling the trigger on that, because I don't know when I would have got it.
And did you miss the PlayStation?
No. Because I ended up getting another one about a year later when I got my N64. Because I had the N64 and I really, really missed SmackDown 2. I was like, I need SmackDown 2 back. And I know we had like No Mercy and stuff. It just, I don't know, for me it wasn't the same. That's what I grew up on. And I just loved it. I really, really loved it.
It must be quite interesting for you, like going from the PlayStation to the N64, like with loading times as well, because obviously, like the PlayStation's loading times were quite bad sometimes, and like obviously one of the reasons why Nintendo decided to stick with the cartridges was because of the near instant loading of the game. So that must have been quite a shock for you, I guess, wasn't it?
Definitely was happy to see loading times, be a thing of the past. But what was quite interesting about the N64 and quite fun at that time, still relatively young in my age, was that I think with the N64, that's when I already started to grow that interest in the technical limitations, what they could squeeze out of it. I still remember firing up FIFA 98 on the N64 for the first time and hearing like 10 seconds of heavily compressed Song 2 from Blur, and it was like discovering fire. I was like, oh my god. And I used to turn it off and back on again just to play the intro. I was like, look how low grade it sounds, but it's on a cartridge. And like Wipeout 64, say no more, like listening to Fluke and Propeller Heads, and I was like, as revolutionary as like Wipeout 2097 was, I had this appreciation because they managed to squeeze it out of that console instead of it just being a given like it was with the PlayStation. That was in of itself part of the fun, I guess. And wonderful little box, and still is the sexiest looking console ever released. I love it. It just looks so striking with a two-tone color scheme, between the actual box and the controller, the curves on it. It almost kind of it straddles that fine line between being like quite toyetic and also being like a high-end British hi-fi. Just looks, it looks really prestige, but it still looks like something you give to a kid. And I just think
100%.
Yeah, Nintendo haven't captured that since. I mean, the Switch is kind of iconic, but the N64, second to none in terms of design.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the N64 was my first. Like, I was there for day one of a Nintendo console, because I've said on the podcast before, I was very much a Sega kid growing up. My first console was the Master System, and then I had the Mega Drive. And I did pick up a Super Nintendo eventually, but not until way into its lifestyle. Like, must have been nearish the end of its life, probably the last year or so. So I kind of dabbled on the NES, and I remember playing The Legend of Zelda and Mario Bros. But I never owned one of those myself. So I wasn't really that much of a Nintendo boy. I was Sega, and picking up the Super Nintendo kind of gave me that kind of little interest in Nintendo games and what they were up to. And so when I heard of the N64 finally arriving in the UK, I was there for it, and it turned me, I think, in quite a lot of ways. You know, still had the soft spot for Sega. I still bought my Saturn and my Dreamcast, but there was, I think it must have been the start of the turning point for me to be more of a Nintendo fanboy, I guess, in some ways, you know. And from that point on, I think from then, you know, it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and the N64 was the start of that for me. And just big fond memories of just playing Super Mario 64 on that launch day. I mean, I'm saying launch day. I'm pretty sure I got it on launch day, but I cannot remember for the life of me whether I did or not. But because I was earning an income by this point, so probably just, you know, maxing out the credit card and feeling cool about it, and, you know, this and that. But yeah, playing Super Mario 64, it was just eye-opening, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I just had to keep playing and playing and playing, because it was just amazing. It was just something I'd never experienced before, and that grey little box brought so many hours of memories and happiness, not just on my own playing games like Super Mario and Ocarina of Time and, you know, those kind of games, but also obviously the multiplayer aspect of the console, that having the 4 controller ports on the front of that machine just made it so easy just to have a few mates round and just have a lot of fun together playing, you know, Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye, Diddy Kong Racing. You know, the list goes on and on and on. Yeah, like everyone said before as well, you know, like the aesthetics of the machine, like Rich was saying, like the curves and everything, and that satisfying click when you turned it on as well.
Yeah,
we just loved it. Just loved it all. So yeah, it's just a magical, a special machine in my heart that will never go away. Chris touched upon this earlier, was that controller. Yeah, again, it's something that we've never really seen before, that controller. And it brought many innovations to the gaming world. But it's always a bit of a butt of the joke these days, isn't it? And with, you know, how are you supposed to hold it and this, that and the other. You know, but there is no right way of holding it, is there?
No,
it's just however you feel comfortable.
Exactly. There's another streamer who's heavily into the N64 as well, called Now and Then 64, and he admitted that he holds the controller in a weird way to me, and to most people that hold an N64 controller. We joked around and said he was shunned from the community. However, with that, we go into, and it's something that I've spoken about a couple of times recently with my next podcast, which will be on Superman 64, unfortunately, not Superman. And it's
I
that
only ever
element
played
of
the demo of that in Electronics Boutique.
But it's one of those things, at least you've played some of it, because a lot of people will just jump on that YouTube bandwagon of, well, I've heard, and they will repeat the same things to you, and you go, have you actually got a memory of playing with this controller? Because there are certain games, the controller works for anything Nintendo based, it works. Now, one of my party tricks is I can complete Lilac Wars or Star Fox 64, depending where you are in the world. I can complete that on the hardest the hardest route. So mission completing every single level and not losing a single life. Now, if I don't have a normal N64 controller, because I have got like the Retro Fighters controllers, and I've got other controllers which are nicer sometimes for certain games, especially fighting games. But if I don't have a proper N64 controller, I can't play it. I can't play Lilac Wars. I can't. I need a proper N64 controller for Lilac Wars. And yeah, as you said, it has turned into the butt of the jokes. But I think it's turned into the butt of jokes because a couple of people have said, and you listen to everyone that says the same. They all repeat the same things. And you go, no, that was the problem with Super Mario 64 with the controller. So the camera angles. That was the problems with Super Mario 64. That wasn't the problems with Ocarina of Time because they brought in Z targeting. So it's an odd one. It's an odd one when you hear people go off about the controller. It's like, it's unique, and I love the GameCube, but it's not the GameCube controller. The GameCube controller can get in the bin sometimes. The N64 controller is definitely, I'd choose that any day over a GameCube controller.
But you see, like Nintendo had, really thought about when they created that, and they gave us the C buttons for the cameras, which you didn't get on the other consoles.
Exactly.
And that worked. We were still in the dawn of 3D gaming. And obviously the camera's not as great as they are now, well, the majority of games anyway. But they still had the thought to include those C buttons to make it easier for us to, navigate those camera angles.
Completely.
And, I don't really know what the problem is with the controller either, because it's, it was just natural for me to hold it in the middle prong, because that's where the Z button was. And it was, easy access to the analog stick. And it was comfortable. I never thought it was not a comfortable controller to use at all.
I think it was a great controller, and I loved the addition of the trigger underneath.
Yes.
I think that was such a stroke of simple genius to put the third button as a trigger. So when you're playing first or even third person shooters or even GTA, the top down, you're physically holding something that feels like a gun with a trigger exactly where you'd expect it to be. So Nintendo doing the same for years, fully immersive gaming. Subconsciously, you're holding that gun that you're playing with the character.
Yeah.
Just by touching that trigger at the back. Just great. And I never had an issue with the controller, because the way it was designed with the three prongs was, if you want to play old school games, you hold either side. Want to play a game where you've got lots of strafing and moving around with a trigger, you move your right or left hand to the middle. And you could customize the controller as well. So you could go into your settings and you could switch one pad over to the other side, depending on what you wanted to use. Great. It was great. I had no issues with it, other than the first maybe like 4 or 5 days to a week of trying to get used to the feeling of it. And then once you've got that, you're fine. I loved it.
The innovation of having that little port on the back of the controller as well was great as well, wasn't it? And that brought a lot of different accessories to the console, and like that's where the memory card went, and that saved the console look. That's how we got that lovely looking console, because they didn't have to worry about memory cards and little slots or wherever they're going to go. They just slap it in the back of the controller.
Yeah.
And and that's where we, when they finally released the Rumble Pack.
I love the Rumble Pack.
Released with like.
That came out really wrong,
didn't it?
Did you enjoy that while you're learning how to?
Chris, take that controller out between your legs, will you, please?
That's the one. Yeah.
But it's so many things with this controller that we take for granted now. With the Z button, the Z button being underneath. Every controller has that now. Actually, do you know what? A lot of people do go, oh, it's a bit weird when you go from 2 joysticks on modern consoles to this. But actually, if you have a look at what's known as turbo controls, where the joystick in the middle was for looking around, and they would use the C buttons for movement, that is so similar. And as I said, you've got the Retro Fighters controllers, which change the positioning slightly to be, well, if you're used to a modern console, this is actually taking it to that next level. That you can get your back used to using this controller again. But the thing of that Rumble Pack, it was the most violent thing in the world. It still is. Rarely do I go. It's sat in my box with my cartridge, my 124 cartridges. It's sat in the box with it, and rarely do I go, today I'm going to put in the Rumble Pack, because I mean, it is the most violent kit on the planet. It makes your hands numb, especially playing a game like where it's constant. The worst, we will come on to worse games, with the controller. One of them was saying about making your hand numb. Was Mario Party, the original Mario Party, and we're talking about the fun that Chris had possibly with his controller.
Yeah.
Well, this thing used to create blisters on the palms of your hands as well. I mean, literally, like the movements that you have to do on that bloody joystick, the amount of controllers Nintendo must have broken or Hudson broke because of creating that game was unbelievable. But no, it's so many innovations to that controller. It's something to be excited about, not something to go back and lambast.
I guess the only issue, and this is where the Dreamcast got it right, because you had the 2 slots in the controller. So you could have the Rumble Pack and a memory card.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the only... Gotta take the Rumble Pack out, put the memory card in, save it, take that out.
You say that, but I've actually got upstairs a memory pack and Rumble Pack in the same thing.
They did stuff to come out, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And I originally wanted just a Rumble Pack, but I think Woolworths at the time only had the dual memory card and Rumble Pack. So I had to spend an extra 10 quid or whatever. I was like, just fine. But yeah, it's still upstairs. It's got a crack in it, but it still works, I believe.
What did you do to it, Chris?
I had many angry gaming moments. We've all had them where you launch a controller across the room and then you're like, oh, fuck.
I didn't need to hurt you, come back.
Yeah, I did it once. I threw it across, I remember I threw it across the room. I can't remember what I was playing. Might have been Perfect Dark or something like that. And it was just like, I was getting really frustrated. When you die at the same place every single time, you're on like attempt number 15 and you're like, Jesus Christ. I threw it so hard that the actual cable came out of the N64.
Oh no.
But again, Nintendo being Nintendo, they build their stuff so robust that any kid with a tantrum, and it worked fine.
Yeah, my gold controller's still working now, so
Yeah, you do that with a PS4 or PS5 controller now, an Xbox controller, it will just shatter into a million pieces.
yeah, you'll be gone. It'll be done.
Like, I had to buy a new PS4 controller about 5 years ago.
It's garbage, anyways.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's like, what the hell's this? It's faulty.
Yeah, I can't remember what happened, but it stopped working, and I noticed that the weighted cams on the left side weren't moving.
Okay.
And I was like, that's weird. It turns out when I looked it up that it's a common thing that if you even just you know what a PS4 controller's like, you just have to look at it and it does some weird shit with those back buttons because it doesn't lift them off the table.
Yeah.
They're so close to the table. And apparently with a PS4 controller, we all know this now, you just got to so much as look at them and a wire pops out.
Yeah.
And it annoyed me because I couldn't get it fixed. So I had to spend a lot of money on a new one just because the wire had dislodged from the thing. Never happened with the old consoles.
No.
Never.
Nope.
Nothing ever happened.
Nope. I've got 2 fully working Dreamcast controllers, a working N64 controller.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got 2 Xbox controllers downstairs with a stick drift. So who knows?
I mean, I guess that was the only negative on the N64 controller. I guess was the stick itself sometimes lost its firmness. I guess.
No, it got floppy.
Yeah,
You got that horrible white deposit around the bases of the stick as well.
I blame the Rumble Pack.
Also, like the ball got pushed in sometimes as well due to
Drank
No,
all the
that's-
time there.
But I think
what
that's
is it with this podcast?
Chris, are you the reason that Nintendo actually put a prong design on it? Is it so?
Maybe.
You've only got 3 prongs. You've still got 2 you can hold on to, while the third is somewhere else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
He was the reason why they were scared to not go away from family-friendly games.
That's it, yeah.
Where Chris
Do
will
some
take them.
nondescript R-rated stuff with an N64 controller. Opens up Pornhub searches N64.
That's pretty much Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's fine.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
What's he talking about?
oh no.
Can't see my porn for all this fog. It's just.
Fog here.
Says Rich with a pint of spunk.
Actually, you'll be pleased now I've finished said.
Oh,
kind of
you
stuff.
finished
there
that?
you
Yeah,
go.
okay.
Yep.
Fully note-created.
What about the one thing I like about it, away from the controller, obviously Nintendo were quite ahead of their time with the expansion pack as well, which is kind of crazy nowadays. You
Yeah.
think of, software updates, hardware updates, revisions. And there they were with this little red and black box that I never had, and I'm pissed off to this day. So.
I've got one in mind. But it's a weird story because that's, it came with the failure of the 64DD, which is the 64 disk drive, or, that was attached to the bottom. Only about 20,000 was sold. And, you looked that they wanted to give this thing more, because they knew that they weren't stupid. They knew that they did not have as much memory as they could put into these carts. Eventually, we saw absolute wonders like them sticking the whole of Resident Evil 2 on a cart.
Yeah.
But they needed to expand it. And they created this thing, and they thought, we're going to make loads of money from this expansion pack. We're gonna make loads. And then Rare had to come knocking and go, Nintendo, do you know how we've done you lots of money? Yes, you're doing really well, Rare. Well done. Well, we've made Donkey Kong 64, and we've sort of hit a problem that it gets to a certain point in the game, and without the expansion pack, the game crashes. So basically, that's the reason why they gave out this £50 bit of kit completely free with Donkey Kong 64. So that's the reason why most of you find were sold with Donkey Kong 64. And that's why Donkey Kong 64 did sell a lot of units, because there was only a couple of games, and lo and behold, Rare made both of them that could not run without the expansion pack. It wasn't that they needed the expansion pack to be, like a Turok 3, look incredibly pretty with it. They just couldn't run. It was so funny that Nintendo had thought, right, don't worry, we've recouped some of this cost from the failure that was the 64DD. Don't worry, Rare. We need to give it out free with our game. What? What do you
so
mean you need to
crazy.
give it out free?
But then they did it again with Perfect Dark, didn't they?
They did,
It wasn't
yeah.
like a one-off thing. I mean,
Nope.
nowadays that would be it. And like you'll say, right, you're only getting it in this game, and then if you want it, you've got to spend, buy it separately for like an extra £100 or whatever. But no, back then they did it again, and
They messed up again, and then we wonder why they let Microsoft just buy them out.
but like you say though, Rich, I mean, they were so cool to get that little expansion pack, and you had the little tool to prize out the old one. It's just really cool, and like you plugged in the new one. It's like,
What a knife.
it was just really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited by it. I never had one, but I still remember that Christmas, like getting Turok 2 and just thinking, I wonder what
Yes.
this looks like with the expansion pack. Oh, well, we'll never know, but it looks nice now. So I want to see that cerebral brawl with an extra 4 meg of RAM. You know what I mean? Just, I don't know. But yeah, I'm still tempted to try and just find one, because I'm looking at N64 now. The first thing I did when I got a new one secondhand was I checked inside to see if there might just happen to be an expansion pack. No, so
No, they
Boo.
go for about 40 quid, so people do
Blimey.
tend to
Bet they do.
sell them, separately. You tend to find in eBay, no N64 is coming with that expansion.
bastards. Okay.
But here's a good thing: if anybody listening that goes, I'm going to get my N64 out, the expansion pack from Japan, the expansion pack from America, the expansion pack from Europe, they will all work in any of the consoles. So if you do find a cheap Japanese one, bear in mind that will work. So that's a big tip for anybody out there.
It's good to
You've
know.
driven the price up on our expansion packs in Japan and the US. Thanks for that, Cliff.
That's it. All of your hundreds of listeners, they're all going out there now buying out these expansion packs. And I've actually got some monopoly on it. We go, bah! And we'll do the sound of...
Now, we actually are planning a trip to Japan in a couple of years. So I might have to just scoop a load up while I'm over there. And,
We are, or you and family?
me and the family, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were paying for us, Jason.
No. That
I'm
came
coming,
out
by the way,
completely
so-
wrong, didn't it? And, talking about other accessories, and you just mentioned there, Cliff, a minute ago, about one that never saw the light of day in Europe, and that was the 64 Double D. And that was always quite funny to me, because even now I just think of bra sizes, but,
Yeah.
No, it's all N64s have got the here we go. This is where we're going to get a laugh. A slot in the bottom to take it. You lift any N64 up. You go and have a look at yours upstairs, Chris. There's a little bit of plastic covering this slot at the bottom, and that was to put your 64 on the 64 DD. It was an expensive flop, to say the least. If you have a look at, obviously I've done a lot of podcasts on these games. Ocarina of Time or Zelda 64 was originally going to be a 64 DD game. I've got the original Pocket Monster Stadium sat behind me, the Japanese version. That only had 52 Pokemon on it because they were going to do an expansion with the 64 DD until the year later where they went, no, it's become big in America. Let's just make Pokemon Stadium. So... it could have expanded games. There was, you still can get the ROMs out there for EverDrives if you've got EverDrives at home or any emulators, but you can get a F-Zero X emulation, expansion for it where you could create your own tracks, create your own cars. You had Mario Paint. Mario Paint came out for the 64 DD. A yellow fella that came out for the GameCube eventually, Doshin the Giant, which was huge in Japan. So many of these, and in fact, this is the major thing, the first ever console to be able to get on the internet. It had the capabilities of online playing. The only thing that you could do at release was share your photos that you created on Mario Paint, but it had that capability of going online. But it was just such a shame you never saw the light of day, really.
Yeah, I was always quite gutted it never made it over here. I was quite excited when I saw pictures in the magazines and articles about the journalists talking about about this add-on, and I was all very excited and ready for it to come here, and it just never happened, did it? So,
correct.
And obviously that's made it an even bigger collector's item.
Yes.
Have you looked?
There's no way of there's no way of getting one of those cheap. I do know one person with one, and I have threatened to go over their house and nick it. They do live in the UK as well, but you're looking over £1,000.
Jesus.
For over £1,000 for something, and the games cost over £200 if you're finding the games as well. It is. Then there's only about 10 games out for it. So yeah,
that's
good luck
crazy,
for that.
You know?
That is just solely because you can say that you've got the 64 DD. It will add nothing to your experience with the N64.
I'd rather say I've got £1,000, to be honest.
Yeah,
same.
And I guess there was other things going on in the markets for you to customize your experience with the N64, and I had one such experience when I visited friends in America, and they had this piece of equipment that you slotted into the cartridge slot of the N64, and it had a zip drive in it.
Oh yeah.
So so they had managed to get copies of the game, a few games, and managed to get them onto the zip disk. Chucked it into this zip drive that was plugged into the cartridge slot, and then we could select whatever game we wanted, and then it would load up, and away we go. And I guess that was, I don't know, that sounds like just something that we would do now, isn't it? You know, again, it's an unauthorized innovation of the N64, I guess, isn't it?
And we all know how Nintendo love anything unauthorized.
Sure, yeah.
Smash Brothers Melee. But no, so yeah, it's like, yeah, it was huge, you know, to say that I've now got a zip drive currently sat in my N64 with an SD card in it, with loads of, you know, all of those 64DD games are actually sat on it. You know, it's amazing that at that time in 1998 they were releasing these zip drives. It's such a thing. Emulation is such a thing that we take for granted nowadays.
Yeah, and another innovation of the N64. But I mean, is there any other accessories that you guys like quite enjoyed of the N64? Do you think we've covered?
There's one more.
Ooh.
Go on, Cliff.
Go on then.
Go on, I was going to see if anyone else got there. The transfer pack, which was the lovely addition that came with Pokemon Stadium. Now, it's gutting that there was only about a handful of games that worked with this, so you could stick your Game Boy Color games in there. Well, it was only 4 games: a Perfect Dark game and your Pokemon Red, Blue, or Yellow. And then you'll be all on Pokemon Gold and Silver as well, for Pokemon Stadium 2. But you'll be able to pop them in and play your Game Boy on the console. It is such a shame. There is in development that they did not make it so you could just play your Game Boy Color games on this console. Because the console before, the SNES, had an option for that. The console afterwards, I've got it in the bottom of my GameCube, had an option for the Game Boy Advance that you could play them on your console. So it was such a shame that you wouldn't be able to do that, because the Game Boy Color is my second favourite console of all time. It's a lovely thing.
I never had the experience of the transfer pack. I was never into Pokemon back then, so it's just something that...
Again, it's something I just saw in magazines. I never actually did it myself or saw anyone do it, so fascinating.
It was relatively cool being a massive Pokemon fan to see your Pokemon, because it's weird with Pokemon, you grow like you would with a Tamagotchi at the time. You grow a bit of a fondness for them, but to see them in 3D form on the screen was pretty cool at the time.
Yeah. Okay then, well, let's just move on to our last segment then, and that's our all-time favourite N64 game. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. This is actually a really, really tough one. Like, if you give me other consoles, I could probably just fire off a game without any hesitation, but I always like to think I'm going to say GoldenEye, but I do just truly think, and this is the lazy answer, but I will say Super Mario 64. Because no game has ever made me feel that way, like that game did when it came out for the first time. And it's aged well, like even playing it now, like it still feels like it's up there with more recent, more contemporary 3D platformers. It doesn't feel creaky. It just plays exactly as you want it to.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because especially through the triple pack that came out last year.
Oh, it's wonderful.
The 3D All Stars, you know, and everyone just shat on the Super Mario 64 and just saying how shit it is and how it hasn't aged well, and
people can do that, but they like bloody Sunshine, which is one of the worst games I've ever played.
That can get in the bloody bin. Sunshine can.
trash game. Awful. It's like the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, that set. Seriously, it's just, I don't have any interest in it.
We can all agree with that.
Yeah, but yeah, There is many games. There's lots of other games I do love in N64. I've got real soft spot for Tetrasphere, 1080 degree snowboarding. They're right up there. But there's just something that no game has done that Mario 64 did. It was just from the first time I saw like early footage on like Games Master, and I don't know if it was actually covered on like Bad Influence. I can't remember if that show was around at that point. I don't remember. No.
I think it just ended before the N64 came out.
Yeah.
Just literally ended before.
Andy Craig missed out. It's a shame.
I'm sure it was gutted. Yeah,
Probably.
Yeah. Hashtag real gamer. No. You won't come on the show now. Shit. But yeah, Mario 64. Yeah, it has to be Mario 64 for me. There's so many words I could use to try and explain why, but I think many people have used them time and time again. It just, from the opening cinematic, just that first moment you take control and you're outside the castle, that was just crazy. Just the range of movement, doing the triple jumps, the water effects, it just blew anything away that I'd played up to that point. And yeah, that to me, there are other better games I've played, maybe even on the N64, but no game has captured that feeling. So yeah,
it was the first Mario game, really, wasn't it, that you could really properly explore, and like you saw all the Mario stuff that you've been used to seeing. You see the Goombas, see the Cheeps, the Koopas. It was all there, but it was in these like amazingly massive 3D worlds, and I think it helped because they're all like little sub-worlds as well. It wasn't like you was going from level to level to level. You could choose what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You could play Bomb on Battlefield once, get the star, and then move on to the next one. Obviously, if you had enough stars to open the door, but
yeah,
you could go between the levels and do one star on there, and then do one star on another level, and then you could go down and go through this door and explore that area as well, and find a hidden star there, and it was just I don't know, it was just such a mind-blowing experience back then, that what they managed to create in this 3D world. And consider this was Nintendo's first 3D world game as well, wasn't it?
Knocked out the park.
Yeah.
I mean, up to that point, I was like wowed by games like Crash Bandicoot. So, oh my god, it's like a platformer with like a typical kind of mascot character, but I'm running away from and into the camera. This is like the future. And then within 6 months, I was like, that's crap. Look at this. Like, this is so much better. And it's just, yeah. And I know I mentioned this earlier, this particular level, but for me, my lasting memory with Mario 64 was Dire Docks for the first time. It's still my favourite level in the history of gaming, my favourite piece of music in the history of gaming. There was just something about that. I remember sitting there, it was like a Friday evening, and I was just lost in that little world. And just when you're like literally coming to the surface or swimming down to the depths, you've got that big fuck off eel that's coming out. It's just that really calming music throughout, and it was just so peaceful and atmospheric. And I was so lost in that level, like nothing's. Yeah, I was just until you swim straight to the face of the eagle. So, eagle. Sorry, that's the beer. It wasn't a drowned eagle in the game, I assure you. Yeah, incredible game. Yeah.
Much love for Super Mario 64, Cliff.
Yeah. I'll do an honourable mention as well. Be a Clay Fighter 63 and a third. So.
The Sculptor's Cut is the Sculptor's Cut version of that game is the most expensive game you can buy for this console.
Really?
There you go, some random bit of trivia for you. Only was released in North America in Blockbuster stores. You can only rent it out. There you go. So there you go. This is literally. I was saying to Jason before this is the only podcast I think I've ever not had to do any notes for. I think it is my specialist subject. For me, Super Mario 64, it's one of those games that, one of my top 3 games of all time is Banjo-Kazooie. The problem with Banjo-Kazooie being one of my top 3 games of all time is I do get a bit like, Conker's Bad Fur Day's not it. Banjo-Tooie's not it. Donkey Kong 64, it's a bit of a collecting spree. And then I go into that basis of saying, like, you know, Super Mario 64, like I said earlier, it's all on islands. You can't really explore. So I get a bit funny with it. But if I'm being honest, it was 99.9% of people's first interaction with this console. It was the best-selling game of the 5th generation. No other PlayStation game, no other Saturn game, shock, I know, has sold more than this game. This game sold more than any of them. And it wasn't even packed in with the console. You had to buy it separately. So to sell I think it got to 28 million cartridges sold of this console, of this game. There was only
Really?
30, I think it was 37 million N64 sold worldwide. So to 28 million copies of this cartridge were sold. It's phenomenal. So I think what you nailed on the head, the music in this game is the thing. The music is so good. So good. It has no right to be this good, the music for it. It's so atmospheric, and that's what you said, it's that thing of being atmospheric. So yeah, that's my opinion of Super Mario 64. It's never going to be my favourite, but we've all got to love it for what it is. It was a masterpiece for the time.
Chris, many memories of Super Mario 64?
Yes, it's along with GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. It's one of my most logged games on the console. Obviously, Rich brought up 1080. Everyone, 1080 is amazing, amazing game. But when you realise you're playing a Mario game, it's in 3 dimensions, and the camera is literally 360 degrees, and it changes as you move. And you can jump through walls and paintings, and it ripples. All those small little things make it a beautiful experience. Because, like Rich said earlier about like the molten metal, and we'd never seen anything like that before. And obviously, I'd always gravitate to GoldenEye for my favourite N64 game. It's cliche, yes, but I think I'm with Rich. I think, to me, GoldenEye Mario 64 defined the N64. In my personal opinion, anyway.
Oh, yeah. I look at it the same way I think of Breath of the Wild with the Switch. It's the game that's so synonymous with the console and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's just...
I logged so many hours, and the amount of times that I completed Mario 64, like just, a day off, no one's in the house, and you're just like, so let's turn, And when I moved out and went to college, I took the N64 with me to my other house flat she had at the time. And we plugged it into their old TV, and they had like a really crappy old TV in the lounge, and we'd just sit and play Mario or all the other games. I got so many games somewhere, and it was nice. The fact that I introduced someone else to a console that they'd never played before in 2004. Like,
wow.
And I took it from my room, and I was just like, that would just, and it's nice to revisit old games. And I used to play Mario, and like Rich said, the music and the sound effects, excuse me, the animations, it's just synonymous with the N64. They pulled off something amazing with Super Mario 64.
I think one thing that still broke my brain with that game, I remember seeing it in footage for the first time and then playing it with, was it like, what's the king again? Like the king on the first stage?
King
like,
Bob-omb.
he's like the
King
It's
Bob-omb.
just King Bob-omb, isn't it? Nothing
Yeah.
fancy.
King Bob-omb.
And that broke my brain, like the whole boss battle where you have to swing him and you're doing it through the stick, and that was just like,
Yeah.
it was like that was the first time in the game you had like one-to-one movement, like almost like motion control before motion control. Like I was doing the actual rotation of the stick. I wasn't tapping the button to do it, or and it's just, that was just like, this is the future. Like that was just crazy for me the first time. That was that real extra little level of immersion when it came to the control scheme. And we kind of take it for granted now, but so Nintendo ahead of their time there.
Chris, your all-time favourite N64 game? Was it Super Mario 64 or was it GoldenEye?
Excuse me. It's tied between the two of them, I think,
Okay.
because it was the only two games I had on the N64 for a long while before I could buy games or get games for the next Christmas or birthday. So I think those two games I logged the most hours on. I was constantly on it, like literally after school, Saturday mornings before work, all that kind of stuff you did as youngsters. But yeah, I think it's a tie between the two for me on the N64. Equal
Fair enough.
billing.
Any other games that you were fond of on the machine?
I got into Perfect Dark because one of my friends said to me, again, if you liked GoldenEye, you'll like Perfect Dark. And obviously, I've never been a career gamer. I've got this weird on-off relationship with gaming. And he lent me Perfect Dark. We're at high school. And I was like, this is nuts. This is amazing. Like, this is GoldenEye, but better.
Mm-hmm.
Like better. I mean, better is in like gameplay and graphics and the speed and the puzzles you had to solve. I just thought it was great. And yeah, honourable mention for Perfect Dark because I just enjoy it. I just enjoyed it.
That was good. I think it was the GoldenEye team's chance to create their own game without being tied down by the Bond license and
Yeah, like we spoke of last recording. It was,
yeah. Oh yeah, with Jim. Yeah, so no, it's a good shout. It's a good shout, mate. Do you, the other Rich or Cliff, have any fond memories of Perfect Dark?
I won't lie, this actually passed me by for the longest time. Obviously played it in recent years and I do really, really enjoy it. I still feel like I prefer GoldenEye because I'm a bit of a boring bastard when it comes to being in a bit more of a grounded setting. And that sounds incredibly, like, just boring old man, but I prefer the environment, the locations of GoldenEye. I didn't want to, meet aliens called Elvis and shoot lasers. It, to me, that wasn't like I went into it just thinking this is GoldenEye, and it did things. I was like, don't know. Yeah, for me, it just did everything GoldenEye did, but better. In terms of the actual game design, the way it played.
I think the one thing that it did do better was the multiplayer aspect to it, because with it, there were games that did it before, but with the bots being able to play against bots.
That's brilliant.
Obviously, we I don't know if any of you've ever played Duke Nukem 64, where they're like, nothing in there. They're just walking around just endlessly, just trying to open things and things like that. They're a bit absolutely brain dead. But the thing was what I used to do with Perfect Dark, as well as playing the solo career, was I used to play multiplayer by myself. I used to have a team of 3 my end, and I'd face off against a team of 3. And you put them all in uniforms, so you say, okay, well, this team's going to be the yellow team. And you'd face off against each other. So it was my first real experience of what became such a huge genre in the way of deathmatch first-person shooter. It came from that desire towards the ends of the N64 of seeing my friends with PCs with Unreal Tournament and being able to get their Dooms and Quakes on lands and things on those lines. So it was maybe a bit of a urge to play it like that, but it used to be so entertaining to do. Certain weapons you couldn't ever have in it, like the nuke grenades, and I can't remember the name of it. I feel really bad. Is it the Farsight? I want to say it's the Farsight. So the alien weapon where it just is a sniper rifle that can see through walls. There were certain weapons you couldn't use in that, especially playing it against a computer, because the computer was bloody good. But I remember sitting there for hours doing that on Perfect Dark. But it's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic game. I love it so much. There's so many games for this that I could say that for. do you know what? I'm going to give mine now because I'm surprised. This is the first time I've ever done anything N64 and somebody hasn't literally jumped on me and gone, "What do you think of Ocarina of Time?"
Well,
And if the irony that I've actually sat there with Jason next to me playing Ocarina of Time as well. It's the best game of all time.
but I'm gonna jump in here quickly and just say that this
on.
is my all-time favorite N64 game too.
You go for it. Go for it.
You crack on. I shall join in.
No, what-
this is a joint. This is a joint.
This is a joint one.
Yeah.
I've said this on so many podcasts, so many streams, when people ask me, what was that moment in gaming where you went, wow? And a lot of people do say it with Super Mario 64, but mine was Ocarina of Time coming out onto Hyrule Field. And it being like, oh my effing god, what is this? Like, I did a recent interview, a show with somebody else, and they said about that they had friends with Ocarina of Time, but most of them had Final Fantasy VII, and they used to always mock him and go, "Oh, I can't wait to get home to play Final Fantasy VII." But he dropped this bomb of, well, I can't see why anybody would want to go home and play turn-based attacking. And it was like that little mic drop moment of somebody that owns Ocarina of Time, because it was just felt like you were on an adventure. That literal moment of Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit movie where he runs out going, "I'm going on an adventure." That is me on Ocarina of Time. I can complete that game with my eyes closed. However, it is my comfort blanket. I've said enough about this game in the past. Jason, what makes it so great for you?
I mean, I played A Link to the Past on the SNES, and I really enjoyed that game. And it kind of got me interested in Zelda games. But I kind of walked away from that game and was like, oh yeah, it was a good game, really enjoyed that. But then when I came around to playing Ocarina of Time, from the moment where Link wakes up in his little tree house, and you've got the yeah, and you're in Korok Village, and it just I think like where I played Super Mario 64 and like that whole like 3D environment and all the exploration stuff kind of hit me with that game. So I guess I didn't get that as much with Ocarina of Time because I'd already had that with Super Mario 64, but there was a different experience with Ocarina, and I guess quite similar with Mario 64, I guess, because you had the Zelda universe, but it was all 3D, and you had, even though with Link to the Past, you kind of could explore and go to places where you shouldn't really be able to go because you haven't got the right weapons, or you just can't access those parts right now. But there was just something about Ocarina of Time that just hit me, and I couldn't let go of it, and I had to see it through to the end, and I had to explore every nook and cranny of the game. Like you say, where you talk to the owl, and then Hyrule Field kind of opens up. And this is after you've had that kind of really emotional moment on that bridge with his friend. I can't remember his friend's name now.
Sarah.
Yeah. And that was really emotional. It really kind of tugged at you. And I never really experienced that in a game before. You never really had that kind of power. You just used to just sitting down and having a normal gaming experience, and then all of a sudden, you felt sorry for what was happening. You felt that emotional connection, and then you, like you say, you hit Hyrule Field, and you're like, oh my god, look at this! I can go here, I can go there, I could go to the castle, I could go to the farm.
I could go fishing.
Yeah, I could go to the Zoras, Gerudo Valley, and obviously, as per Zelda game, you couldn't always get access to those areas right at the beginning. I think you had to go to Kakariko Village or the castle. I can't remember where you had to go, but And I was just invested in the whole game and the whole experience, and it really cemented Zelda for me. And I walked away from that game as a massive Zelda fan from that point onwards. And I'm always there for a Zelda game now. You know, that it encapsulated me to push the Zelda franchise above Mario and all the other ones to be the gaming series, the gaming franchise that I will be there for day one for any game from that point onwards because of what that game did.
No, I agree.
And that experience that I had with that game.
It actually had a weird double-edged sword with that, because it is a series that gets me in the feels every time. However, on release of the GameCube, obviously we had all the tech demos of this 3D fight between Link and Ganondorf. We had Majora's Mask before. I'm a massive fan of Majora's Mask as well. But then we didn't get that tech demo. We got Wind Waker. And I remember that was the reason why I did not buy a GameCube.
Oh, really?
And I'm only now going back and playing Wind Waker. And
Such a good game.
I flipping love it.
Yeah.
It's turned into, like, I've got Breath of the Wild. I put more hours into Wind Waker than I have Breath of the Wild. Like, it's such a good game, but I got in this weird, like, oh, but that's not the Zelda I wanted. And in fact, the Zelda that I did want, that they later released in Twilight Princess, was I don't like the wolf bits in Twilight Princess. It's annoying. It's frustrating. But it's really strange that it's made Zelda such an important game in my life, but at the same time put a peak on it that I was like, well, Majora's Mask is great. However, nothing's ever going to live up to Ocarina of Time. Nothing.
No. And
nothing. That is it. That is the pinnacle in computer gaming.
And I think it was like where I was saying about the emotional ties with at the beginning. And like thinking about it even more, I think it was like the first video game experience I had where I had a proper, true storyline running through the whole game. And you had those cutscenes of like Ganon stealing the Princess Zelda and her throwing you the ocarina and just having all these moments throughout the game. And I don't know, Nintendo just managed to write this game to really connect you. And like that moment where you go to the Temple of Time as child Link and you pull that Master Sword out.
Oh,
and like
the excitement.
well, yeah, and I didn't know that what was happening. You know, I didn't. I know I'd read stuff in magazines, but I mean, obviously, we didn't have to worry about spoilers in those days. And for you pulling that Master Sword out of the plinth, and then Child Link turns into Adult Link, it just blew me away. I was just like, oh my god. You know, and then now you're roaming this world as Adult Link, and it's different because you're in the future. And it was just amazing.
It felt like your actions, even though you didn't in this game, but your actions had a consequence.
Yeah.
And also, you know, you're saying about, look, I'm not going to say it exactly on here because I know it's a game that came out almost 25 years ago, but I don't want to spoil it for all people, is that end boss battle.
Sure.
I had not read anywhere that there were 3 stages to this boss battle.
Yeah.
So I remember killing Ganondorf and going, oh, the castle's collapsing around me. Yeah. And being stuck on that part for a fair while and then going, oh, I got out of the castle. And then the next moment happening and going, oh, that's why the castle was called that. It was like this moment, like I'd not seen. I don't know how I managed to avoid it.
Sure,
but that was one of my first wow moments. Like, oh, blinking egg! It's my first moment in a computer game where I'm like, oh, blinking egg! This is out of nowhere that they've thrown this on me. So obviously, as I said, Lilac Wars. I've got a huge soft spot for Lilac Wars. A huge soft spot for Banjo-Kazooie. Space Station Silicon Valley. Like, I could sit here. Doom 64, the ultimate version, in my opinion, of Doom. And my favourite first-person shooter for this console. I could sit here and tell you so many games, but Ocarina of Time in my opinion, is a masterpiece, and it's very rare we get to say that in gaming.
Yeah, banging. Chris, much experience with Ocarina of Time?
No.
Easy.
I with the Zelda games, I've maybe played a bit of one or two of them over the years, which is really weird considering I kind of dabble in fantasy now and again, like as a genre. But as gaming wise, I've never properly picked up a game of Zelda, even though everyone keeps telling me I should. It's one of those things you put on the back burner and then you forget about. And then it comes up in a conversation and you think, oh shit. I haven't played any of the Zelda games or anything like that, unfortunately.
That's all right, mate. No worries.
I know,
You know,
sack me.
I'll let you off this time. But
Yeah.
I'm
what
already
about yourself,
not
Rick?
rich. I can't be not Chris as well.
Rich, any experience with Ocarina?
Yeah, I mean, I got it. That was like my my big Christmas game of 98, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I never really had much Zelda experience. Like, I played a bit, like, on the Game Boy. But I think, for me, what just drew me was, I've got this console, I've had it for a good, little while now, and you always kind of just get behind the big AAA tentpole games that are coming out, because that's where you kind of view the success of the console, and like, I have to have this is the big game, this is the biggest thing since Mario, since GoldenEye. So yeah, I just screamed at my parents, I want this for Christmas, and I still remember playing on Christmas morning, and I do remember going out into Hyrule Field, and it was a genuine wow moment. But I think as time goes on, I look at it, and it was never really the game for me, because I don't think I was always into the kind of RPG kind of light fantasy stuff. It never really got me in terms of story or the type of game. But from a technical standpoint, yeah, I was totally into it. I absolutely loved it for that. It was a great showcase of the N64, and I still remember how fucking heavy that cartridge was as well. It was like a paperweight. Or was it 512 meg in there? Or 256, one or the other. But yeah, you could kill someone with it, seriously. Yeah, beautiful game. I think it was probably one of the first times as well. I remember when you go into like the market and you saw some like the pre-rendered. There's that one bit that's kind of got like the pre-rendered backdrop, and that was kind of like, whoa, okay, we're doing this, are we? Shit. And up until that point, I mean, probably like Resident Evil 2 aside, I don't really know of any other N64 games that did that. I might be wrong, but
Yeah, no, that was a good effect.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here thinking about it as well. And I think one of the other things I didn't really mention about was the fact that you could get Epona, the horse, and really like explore the world with Epona as well. And I think that was the first for me as well in video games where you could do something like that. And I think that's such a given now in modern open world games. That yet again we could look back at Nintendo and this console and say what innovation that was, and maybe video games wouldn't be what they are today without that.
yeah.
And of course the same with Mario 64 as well, and that's the soundtrack of Ocarina of Time. It's just amazing. It's still one of my favourite Zelda soundtracks, and it still holds my all-time favourite Zelda track with Gerudo Valley.
Oh, banger.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, just a beautiful master part class of a game, like you say, Cliff.
I think lastly, if we're talking about if we're talking about composers, there's two guys that should be brought up, and that was on the rare side. So you had Grant Kirkhope, which was the creator of Everything Banjo. So if anybody's seen my show, I was very lucky to get a commission from CJC or Christopher Jordan Cook, who makes a lot of Mr. Biffo stuff, who's been on the show. He made all my music as well. And I remember going to him.
He might be making music for this podcast too.
Oh, we can be podcast brothers. This is great. But no, so I went to him and I was like, look, I want something banjo. I want something Kurt Cope, because you listen to his stuff and you were saying about, those theme tunes, they're so iconic. And another one is, and he's still doing it now on games like Sea of Thieves, is Robin Beanland, who he won a BAFTA. So the music for Conker's Bad Fur Day, that won a BAFTA. And those soundtracks are just so iconic. So iconic. And obviously they both helped create the music for GoldenEye, which was already said as well. Yet again, iconic music. There's something about this console. If we're talking about Mario 64, if we're talking about Zelda Ocarina of Time, if we're talking about Banjo or anything, it comes down to that immersion, and it comes down to that feeling of how it makes you feel. And the music definitely helps that.
Yeah. And you can marvel at what they did with the music on the console, considering it was on a cartridge and not CD, which a lot of people, got snobby about, and there was no reason to. It showed that it could hold its own.
We've brought it up now this is the third time. Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2, how the flipping heck did that come out for this console? It was 2 CDs for the PlayStation.
Yep. Yet
they jammed all that into that cartridge, and it lost none of the feel of Resident Evil. It's astonishing. And to be honest, a lot of people do take the mickey and talk about, how, that it didn't have the music as a PlayStation 1 did. But the compression side and the technology that had to keep coming into this console to help the compression of the sound. Wipeout 64 has already been brought up, to help it be able to take in that music. It helped revolutionize gaming to what we know now, that it's able not only just sound, but to compress files into these very small spaces. The N64 has a lot to be thanked for the gaming industry, what we know of now.
Yeah, definitely. It was like a bit of a middle finger up to Square in it with.
Poor Nintendo.
That's the other thing as well. Didn't
no Final Fantasy for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the DD was for, but
yeah.
I generally think that they were trying to compress these down to go Square. We know we told you to go and do whatever you wanted, but if you did want to come back to us, we can do this. I swear that was the reason why they were doing it. There's some great stories, but hopefully one day we'll come back and talk more, because if not, we'll be here forever.
Body
exactly. Harvest, where they were creating Body Harvest, which was appearing on Games Master in the season 5. Yet Body Harvest at the time, Nintendo were begging DMA Design to change it completely into an RPG, because they were really scared they did not have an RPG for this console because they had lost Final Fantasy. There's so many great stories about Nintendo going a bit doolally at this time. Last one I will say, because GoldenEye has been brought up a lot, was Miyamoto. I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but Miyamoto really wanted, at the end of GoldenEye, the characters to come out and give each other a big hug. I think that is just, if anybody ever says to me, why do you love Miyamoto so much? That is the one thing that I tell them. Do you know GoldenEye, the game where you shoot people dead? Well.
You can go and give your victims a hug at the end.
Let's all just hug it out, guys. Don't worry, Alec. You may have dropped to your death, but
if only that easy in real life. Wouldn't it be lovely?
Spoilers.
Well, thank you very much, Cliff, for joining us once again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. And as I said, it's the only podcast I think I'll ever be on that I don't need notes. So if you ever want me on for any more N64, I'm here.
That's right. I've had you on for films. We've had you on for video games.
Say
You know,
films.
we need to get you on for some TV show action.
Yeah, that's the next one, isn't it?
Mind you, we've only got like 2 years left, and then that's it, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I think we'd have to ask my my other co-host of that time if we can come on to do a TV show together. Yeah, that would be quite nice, and also give us something nicer than Batman Forever. Sorry, Batman and Robin. I wish I'd got Batman Forever. Batman and Robin, that'd be lovely.
Yeah. Okay. If anyone doesn't know where you live on the internet, please enlighten them.
So, you can find me, N64 Life Podcast, on the Twitter, on the Twitch, and on the Instagram. I'm most vocal on Twitter, and also on the Twitch I have a show, 8:30 till 11 every Friday and Sunday, where I play everything N64, so come and join me there. And then if you want to give me a follow on my normal socials, it's at The Amazing Cliff.
Excellent. And I highly recommend you all go and find Cliff and N64 Life Podcast and
Oh yeah, I do have a podcast as well, yeah.
Yes.
Go and listen to the podcasts. I haven't done one for 2 months, but there's plenty out there. There's about 30 podcasts covering about 70, 80 games. Go and look for it. It's a great laugh.
Yeah, it's a good laugh. It's educational as well, because you do throw a lot of facts about the games that I did not know about. So it's very enlightening as well, and very entertaining too. So yeah, go and give that a listen. And that's it for this week. Thank you as always to everyone for joining us. And if you enjoyed the podcast and would like to support us, then we do have a coffee page where you can give us a one-off tip, or if you are feeling kinder, a monthly tip starting from just £1. A massive thank you to all who have done so. You're all legends. If that's not right for you right now, you can also support us by just giving us a review or rating on Apple, Spotify, or Podchaser. You can find the links in the show notes to do that. Our Discord server is open to chat all things retro and modern day pop culture with us and other like-minded people. You can come and say hi by hitting the link in the show notes or on our website. Speaking of the website, you can also find links to our coffee page, our entire back catalogue of episodes, and much more at thewolfiepod.com. Next time, well, I'm not quite too sure right now what next time is. We need to sit down and have a think. But it could be one of two things, but waiting on confirmation on something before we can commit. So whichever one it is, please look out for it in a couple of weeks' time. Chaps, it's time to say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
And I'll see you all very, very soon.
My name's been Jason. Dom, it's over to you.
Well, that's it for another episode of What's Wrong with Wolfie. The boys are off now to hit the roulette table with Patricia Routledge. See you later.
Hey Janelle, what's wrong with Wolfie? I can hear him barking.